Hi, my name is Katherine Kohler. I am the assistant and E-flat clarinetist of the Nashville Symphony, and I am originally from Naperville, Illinois. Nashville is great. I've never lived anywhere like Nashville before, and there's always something going on. Obviously, there are so many platforms and venues to hear live music of all different varieties. But I also really enjoy just kind of the opportunities to learn more about the historical side of the city. And you have the Capitol building, and we have the Ryman Theater, which is really interesting, or Studio B, all those kinds of tours and things that you can learn about the history and how the city has grown, especially over the last 10 years. The growth has been huge, and I really like that part. I also think it's interesting how you can just leave the city and just go a few miles out, and you have places like Shelby Bottoms or Radnor Lake where all of a sudden you're just surrounded by trees and rivers and really beautiful, and you can walk through nature and feel totally, completely removed from the city. So that level of variety and kind of always something that's going on and happening to be involved in is really fun here. The thing that I really like here is that the audiences are so enthusiastic, and so it's even like last week when we were just playing the Dvorak Slavonic dance, which is 3-4 minutes long. It's not terribly long, but it's really enjoyable, and we finished that and the audience was just really into it, enthusiastic, and that always helps us to feel good about what we're presenting and motivate us. So that aspect of being here and the diversity within the audience is something that's really great, and so that's something I enjoy as well. So the E-flat is really interesting because a lot of the pieces that it's written for are character pieces. So something like Till Eulenspiegel, which is the E-flat is used to represent this kind of impish little boy who is always getting into trouble, and or even Symphonie Fantastique that we're doing next week. The fifth movement has this big E-flat solo that the theme is presented like a witch, and so it's kind of goofy and spooky, and the E-flat is very good for those kind of character pieces. But it's also used a lot in the high ranges, so you'll hear it paired with piccolo a lot, and I really enjoy the challenge of trying to make it not sound so much like a toy, because it kind of has the tendency to sound that way. So trying to make it sound beautiful and like a standalone instrument on its own, and just using it to add another layer or level of color to the orchestra, where you might not necessarily say, oh yeah, that's the E-flat, but you might hear it as a new interesting color or texture within the group. I'm a big dessert person, so that shouldn't be a genre of food that you focus on, but I love desserts. I sometimes go over to the Goo Goo Cluster shop after work and get one. So yeah, just kind of exploring the dessert scene here is always a good thing for me. My favorite, I listen to the radio a lot, just whatever on the radio I think is interesting. I love the Beatles. I think they're great. That's something I always put on and just always makes me happy. I like the Turtles. They have some pretty goofy, feel-good stuff. Who else? There's a singer called Ron Pope who has an album called Daylight that's really excellent. So yeah, I kind of dabble in most things and give it a try. I love the Harry Potter movies. I was a huge Harry Potter fan growing up, read all of the books multiple times, so those I love. I really like this movie called The Legend of 1900, which it's far-fetched, but it's a good movie. It's about this pianist. Well, he's a child and he's born on this ship that's making trips back and forth from, I think maybe England to the United States, bringing immigrants over. And he's born on this ship and ends up being a piano prodigy, and he never leaves the ship. He just stays on the ship and makes all this music and performs. It's a very good movie. Let's see, what else? I'm sure I have another one that I really like. The Italian Job. I like that movie. That's a good movie. Those might be top 3. I like a lot of movies. So. Well, my grandfather was a clarinetist and my mom was a clarinetist, and then I have 2 older sisters who are identical twins, and they came home from school in the 5th grade with band instruments. When you're little, you always want to do what your older siblings do, so I was like, oh, I must play the clarinet. And my mom said, no, you're too little, you have to wait. But I just kept throwing a huge fit. Every time my sister would have a lesson, I'd just throw a huge tantrum. And so my grandpa finally said to my mom, look, I've got this extra clarinet, just give it to her, she'll get over it, and then we don't have to deal with this anymore. So then I started playing it, and I have just never stopped. So I didn't know that a decision I'd make when I was 7 would impact the rest of my life, but that's where we are, so.